Hello, Scott Shortmeyer here with the Rest and Recovery Podcast, and I am here in Boston, Massachusetts at the Biohacking Congress event, second event of this year, and with me I have the pleasure of Kimberly Boehm, and thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. So you're here representing FDN.
Yes.
So functional diagnostic nutrition.
Yes.
And we'll get into what that is, but maybe a little bit of your background. What I've learned about you is you've been a storied experience in medical field, going from kind of the practitioner to more the natural side, it seems.
Yes, that's true. My background is in nursing.
Okay.
I was a nurse for a large healthcare company here for many, many years in family medicine and gynecology and obstetrics and emergency medicine, and I got to an age where I could retire, and I had gotten kind of tired of that 8 to 5 or 6. 30,
7, 8, 9.
Until the next nurse came in.
Right.
And I thought, it's a really good time. But when I stopped doing that, I was still young enough. I wanted to do something, but I wanted it to really kind of be on my own terms. And I thought health coaching, that would be wonderful. That's right up my alley. And I started my own health coaching business.
Okay.
But then I found something was missing. And what was missing for me was the FDN program, which I stumbled into.
Okay.
Which is another whole story. But it was that missing piece of really getting specific and coaching them to the right thing instead of just coaching them to a broad brush. So the results I get now are much different.
So going from that general 30 million people and apply the same methodology and solutions.
Yes.
And get more prescriptive in things.
Yes, exactly. Yes, one size does not fit all.
This is so true.
Yeah.
So true. I've been making the joke, we're all walking chemistry sets.
Yeah.
And we all have different, aspects of our life and respond to things differently.
That's so true. Absolutely. Especially when it comes to diet, exercise, or when to rest, how to rest. Stress. Stress is different for everybody.
Yeah.
But peeling it away is really key.
Yeah, especially in the nutritional piece. Personal anecdote, I have 2 daughters that have peanut allergies, and peanuts considered one of the best proteins for you. So it's how do you deal with those contradictions, right?
Right, exactly. And it's interestingly, and I think I heard Deepak Chopra say it best when he said there's no one food that can be named inflammatory or non-inflammatory.
Interesting.
It's really all dependent upon your microbiome and what's in your gut. And is that food healthy for you? Is it inflammatory for you? Because we believe that inflammation, really, and that constant inflammation is the basis of most unwell and disease and illness. So
what you mentioned, whole nother story, FDN.
Yeah.
How did that evolve for you? What was it that drew you to FDN compared to other maybe programs?
Interestingly enough, how that evolved for me, when I decided I wanted to be a health coach, I went back to school. So I went and I was taking a health coaching course. And I was excited to hang out my shingle, when I got my first few clients. And even though I had attended a wonderful school, people were following my coaching program to the T, and they weren't getting the result all the time that they wanted.
Yeah.
And I knew something was missing. And I was talking to another, one of my classmates, and she said to me, this coaching is wonderful, but that's not my main focus. I find hidden healing opportunities for these people, specific, and then I coach them to that.
Okay.
So I found that I had actually been coaching people beautifully, but to the wrong place sometimes.
Okay.
Instead of coaching them to what was well for them.
So what was that missing link that FDN kind of closed that gap for you?
Oh my goodness, several things actually. We do assessments, so it's subjective data, right? And what we know from that is that people can describe something. If somebody came to me when I was nursing and said, oh, my arm, well, it might not be their arm. It might be their heart. But they're telling you as best they can. So you take the subjective data. But the functional labs, that became the objective data.
Okay.
And then you clinically correlate the two. And then you come up with a protocol for them.
Okay.
And all the protocols have the same components to them, but none of them are the same, because my diet would be different from yours. My food sensitivity is different from yours.
Yeah. So where's the the missing link in the sense of labs are not new, right? We've been doing a lot of the same panels for many, many years,
Yes.
but it seems recently, at least from my perspective, we're seeing the data differently.
We are seeing it differently, and I'll tell you, one of the things that people don't realize is some of the large labs in our country, they do a phenomenal job, but they are not just testing well people. They're testing some well people, right? People going for wellness exams, but they're testing some unwell people. And as of late, some very unwell.
Yeah.
So it's not their job to tell you what healthy looks like. It's their job to tell you what normal looks like. And normal today, if you go to the CDC webpage, 6 in 10 Americans have a chronic disease. 4 in 10 have 2 or more. So 60% of the population has an illness they're dealing with. So
Right.
you would probably have to be less healthy than you are right now to be normal. And if your lab was abnormal, think of where you would really be health-wise to have an abnormal lab. So FDN doesn't want to know that. We want to know, where are the people that are hitting on all cylinders? What do their labs look like? You know, what
does peak performance look like?
Yes, what does the optimum health look like? Yeah.
So it's interesting because it's almost like we're being told what the baseline is, and this is what everyone's benchmark is. And to your point, the personalization, that's not necessarily the case.
Right, and you know, when they create ranges, the ranges can be different from lab to lab, state to state. One of the jokes, and it's not a funny joke, but it's sadly the truth, the best way to improve your thyroid numbers sometime is just go have it done at another lab or go to another state where the ranges are different.
Interesting.
You know?
Well, and I was having a conversation with a friend about that too, is like, well, we'll say testosterone, for example, you know, it's like a 900 point range, and it's like, if you're in that range, you're normal, but yet people may feel different ways based on different numbers. Somebody could be at 7 and feel terrible. Somebody could be at 2 and feel wonderful.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you parse that out, taking the science and the subjective, and work with individuals to come up with a prescriptive plan?
Well, one of the things we do, the online assessments that we do, it's very, very comprehensive. And we go back to every illness you've had, disease you've had, accident you've had. And we really let them spell out in their own terms what that looks like for them. And then we take the labs and we see patterns. We lay that out and find healing opportunities, and we call that their metabolic chaos scorecard. So if we find 216 healing opportunities, even if I couldn't get all of them, if I could help you resolve 80% of them, would that be substantial?
Right.
And yes, and we find that it is for folks.
Yeah, I guess, you know, picking your spots, right, and figure out what can move the needle.
Absolutely.
So when you go through those things, what are some of the key indicators that you're looking for? Are there certain groupings that you want to see that are in better range?
Yes, actually what we're looking for, and we've got over 75 different labs that we can run depending on what we see in the initial assessments. But generally speaking, there are 5 core labs that we will run on everyone. The biggest bang for the buck, I think, is our food sensitivity testing.
Yeah.
If I could only do one, that would probably be the one, because that's where we're going to see which foods are inflammatory for you.
Yeah.
And every healthy food is not healthy for everyone. It depends on the microbiome in your gut. So that's a big one. That and the GI map.
Okay.
To really get a look at bacteria, dysbiosis, pathogens, bugs, you know, whatever we might see there.
So you mentioned microbiome. Yeah. It sounds like that's kind of an important area of our body to maintain health. Maybe expand on that for me.
Yeah. So everybody has your immune system. Most of that work that's done for your immune system is actually in your gut. So it's gut health, and you've got all kind of organisms that are actually living there. And some of them are positive and some of them are not. So you really want to have that healthy balance. And we can look at the gut with different labs, and we can see, for instance, you know, you hear a lot about leaky gut.
Yes.
Well, you've got that mucus layer, which is that first line of defense, which keeps pathogens and things from getting past that.
Okay.
But you've also got the cells, the epithelial cells in the gut, and you want them to be nice and tight, so that things don't get through. But when they are not tight, whether it's food particles, whether it's pathogens that have gotten through, it drops down into your bloodstream. And that's where your white blood cells will go out there and think they're under attack. You'll see your immune response is triggered to that. We see a lot of autoimmune triggers for that.
Okay.
So having a healthy gut is important.
So allergies.
Yeah.
Is there a correlation to gut health?
There can be when you're looking at histamine response and other things, but allergies are not the same thing of what we're looking for with food sensitivities. An allergy is typically something that you're going to see an immediate reaction. For instance, you've got children that have peanut allergies. Well, that's going to be an immediate thing if they have peanuts. Their throat's going to swell. It can be any number of things. What we're talking about is something that triggers inflammation. And that's going to be different because that could be something that takes a day, 2 days to show up. It's a much more subtle kind of thing. But it's raising your cortisol and keeping you in that fight or flight mode, and then that's where the imbalance begins.
And it kind of goes downhill from there.
It goes downhill from there.
So from, I'll call it the user end, how should I know if I've got chronic inflammation? What's an example of kind of a lifestyle issue or challenge that I might have?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that we talk about when we're talking about stress and inflammation, the 5 labs, one of them that we do is a stress and hormone panel lab, and it's a saliva test where we get 4 markers over the course of the day. And we can chart your cortisol as well as the opposing regulator of that, your DHEA, and we can see where your stress level is throughout the day. And you want your cortisol to be higher in the morning and then kind of trickle off during the day and get lower and lower as you go off to bed. So when we see dysregularities in that pattern, then we start looking at, well, what was going on here? Did you eat something at lunch that was a food sensitivity that shot it up? Might there be gut pathogens or bugs that come alive at night when you're trying to go to sleep, so your cortisol at night is going up rather than down? So just different things that we look at.
And that can, as I've learned using wearables and things of that nature, HRV is a big conversation piece. And so it seems like that would be another maybe corollary data point that you could use.
And tracking is so important because you cannot understand what you don't measure, and you can't measure it if you don't track it, right? So, but again, what you want to make sure that you're doing is that you're making that a piece of your puzzle, not necessarily the main puzzle, because you've got to first identify what your healing opportunities are so you know where you're going. Then identify what is the protocol for you that you're going to use to get there, coach your way through it, and then use those wearables and trackables to chart your progress and know when you need to make modifications and when you need to adjust. And you'll find too that as your health improves, it is changing. You're never just in one place. Because the very food sensitivities you have today, if your gut heals, you might be able to introduce all those foods back and have no problem with them then.
So when it comes to the healing process, how do you consistently test over a certain amount of time, like every 3 or 6 months?
You can. One of the things that we typically do, our programs run usually for a minimum of 90 days, but they can go out as far as 9 months or so. But we will have you retest, we'll have you redo your assessments, and generally people will feel much better within even just a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. They can tell they've got some relief going. But the corrective care of the course and the coaching is what takes the months where you're changing behavior. And then you get to the end of the program and you retest your labs and really see how much health has taken place and progress has taken place.
So from a health coaching perspective, like what do you usually, is your goal to not see a client anymore?
You want to be able to teach them everything that you can. And a lot of them, yes, they get to maintenance at the end, and a lot of them feel confident that they can. And then many of them will come back too just periodically.
That check-in.
They might have gotten off course, or they might want to have a little bit of coaching before something is coming up that they know might be a more difficult situation to manage. They're going on a cruise, or they're traveling, or they're doing whatever, or they've had an illness of some sort and they're trying to get back. So people are always welcome back. Absolutely.
So from a health perspective, what's something that I've missed to this point that you would encourage folks watching and listening to really focus on?
I think you can control what goes in your mouth. That's a big one. There are a lot of things you can't control.
Yeah.
You live in a big city and there's a lot of smog. You can't really control that, right? You can wear a mask, but your air is your air. Water that comes in, another big one. If you've got city water, you may not be able to control the water, but you can control what you eat. You can understand your own food sensitivities. You can rest, big one.
Yes.
Rest is huge. People don't understand. When you're sleeping, that's the only time during the day that you're in a truly anabolic state and you're replenishing and refreshing.
Yeah.
And sleep eludes a lot of people.
It's the first thing that goes. That's my own personal story as well. Is just like it's the first thing that goes out the window, which is probably the foundational element to health.
And that's where the imbalance begins.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Insights. And so where can folks find you and your practice and more about FDN?
Yes, FDN, Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, and my practice is Functional Health Group, functionalhealthgroup.org. And we've got a great program. It's a wonderful program to be able to add to your existing business, to be able to help people really get specific, or even with your own health issues, or those of your family or friends.
Yeah. So before we actually, let me pull on that thread a little bit. Are there prerequisites to any of the certifications that FDN offers?
No, they're not. And that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked it, because just because my background was nursing, that's not a prerequisite. No.
Okay.
We teach you everything from beginning to end, how to run the assessments, how to run the labs. We have a medical director program that acts as your guide rails, if you will, as you're getting your certification. You're going to run labs on yourself and your family first to make sure you understand what you're doing.
Okay.
We've got an entire group of support after the fact. So no, it is soup to nuts, everything you need to start your own practice.
That's awesome. That's encouraging, because one, it's a great program, but two, also knowing that I don't have to go to med school first to start helping people reclaim their health.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Check out biohackingcongress.com and Kimberly and FDN. Thank you so much.